My beloved child, he loves you, but he can't walk away yet. Heaven has seen the tears you've cried, the nights you've whispered into the silence asking why his heart feels bound to what hurts him, why the love that should flow freely feels trapped behind invisible walls. God says, there are spiritual chains around his soul, chains that were not formed in this lifetime alone, but woven through choices, fears, and promises he never broke even when they became prisons. You see his confusion, but what you don't see are the unseen forces that have tried to hold him captive, whispering lies, feeding doubt, convincing him that peace lives where pain lives. Yet God is breaking those chains now. There are moments when he feels your spirit calling him, not with words, but with that unshakable pull that lives in silence. He dreams of you. He wakes thinking of you. And still, something drags him back, keeping his feet from stepping toward the light you represent. God says, do not think he does not care. He cares deeply, but he is trapped in a spiritual web of loyalty and fear, a false sense of responsibility, and guilt that is not his to carry. He does not know how to walk away without feeling he's betraying someone, yet what he is betraying is himself. Heaven has begun the work to free him. The angels are loosening every knot that tied him to the past, every emotional chain that made him think he owed more to pain than to love. You have felt his hesitation like a wound. You have sensed him wanting to reach for you and then retreating as if an unseen hand pulled him back. That's not his soul refusing you, it's his fear battling with faith. God says, his spirit remembers you. Before this lifetime, there was a promise between your souls, a vow to find each other again, to heal through one another, to awaken divine love on earth. But darkness hates divine unions. When two spirits are meant to unite in light, the enemy sends confusion, delay, and distraction. That's what's been happening. He has been under attack, not by people alone, but by energies that want to keep him spiritually blind. Yet even darkness trembles when God moves, and now God has declared, enough. Heaven has set a time of release. The chains are shaking. The cords of the past are being burned in divine fire. Every lie he believed about himself, every voice that told him he's not worthy of love, that he must stay where he is out of obligation, is being silenced. God is reaching into the deepest parts of his being, the places he hides from himself, and whispering truth, you are free. You are loved. You are chosen. There is a storm around him because freedom always brings chaos before peace. When God begins to deliver someone, the old systems collapse. That's why you've seen strange shifts, sudden silence, emotional distance, confusion. It's not rejection, it's spiritual surgery. God is removing the roots of fear from his heart. And you, dear soul, you have been chosen to stand in intercession, not obsession. God says you are not meant to chase, but to pray, to hold light where darkness still hovers. Your love was never ordinary, it was divine assignment. That's why it has been so hard to let go, even when you tried. You were never meant to move on, in the way the world teaches. You were meant to move up, higher in faith, deeper in trust. While he struggles in his storm, God is preparing you in silence. Heaven has been teaching you how to love without fear, how to remain steadfast even when you can't see the promise. Every tear you cried has been counted. Every unanswered question has been noted in heaven's book. God will not waste your pain. There will come a day soon when He awakens. The moment will feel like sunrise after years of shadow. He will look at his life and realize he has been living in a story written by fear. He will remember the warmth he felt when you were near, the peace, the clarity, the laughter that came so naturally. He will understand that love was never the trap, fear was. And in that awakening, he will begin to walk away. Not out of anger, but out of obedience to truth. God says, when this happens, do not let bitterness greet him. Let grace open the door. Because love's purpose is not punishment, it's redemption. He must walk away from what binds him before he can walk toward what blesses him, and you must be ready to meet him healed, not haunted. But before that reunion, God needs you strong. You cannot carry his chains for him, you can only carry light. Your role now is to trust the process you cannot see. When the pain rises, remember, it's birth pain, not death pain. Something divine is being born through this separation. Every delay is preparation. God is teaching him lessons only solitude can teach: courage, accountability, spiritual discernment. He is being refined in fire. He may appear distant, but heaven has him under divine discipline. His pride, his fears, his indecision, God is burning them away. And when gold passes through fire, it shines brighter. You may ask, why does it take so long? Because deep healing cannot be rushed. God is not just changing his circumstances, he's changing his soul's direction. The roots of his bondage run deep, some formed through ancestral wounds, others through promises he made to the wrong people out of guilt or fear of rejection. But divine love breaks generational patterns. God is ending cycles that kept him repeating heartbreak and confusion. This is not just about you and him, it's about freeing entire lineages through your connection. When your souls reunite in truth, light will ripple through both families, through all who come after. That's why the warfare has been so strong, because the impact will be divine. There is a season of silence that feels endless, but heaven is speaking in that silence. The angels are surrounding him in dreams, whispering your name, showing him visions of the life he's meant to live, of the peace that waits beyond his fear. He resists, because freedom is foreign when you've lived in bondage for so long. But resistance cannot stop revelation. God's light is seeping through the cracks. Soon, he won't be able to deny what his soul already knows. He will feel the pull so strong it shakes his very foundation. God says, when I call him out, nothing and no one will hold him. The chains that seem unbreakable will shatter in a moment when heaven decrees it. And your faith is the key. Your prayers are the hammer hitting those chains in the spirit. Every time you choose peace over panic, trust over doubt, you weaken the darkness around him. You may not see it, but the spiritual realm reacts to your obedience. The enemy wants you tired, distracted, bitter. But God wants you focused, glowing, grounded in divine love. This season is not about waiting, it's about becoming. You are not waiting for him, you are waiting with God, while he makes both of you ready. The love you carry is holy, it's meant to heal, not to hurt. Keep your heart pure. Speak blessings over him even when you feel forgotten. That's how heaven fights, through love that doesn't quit. Soon, his eyes will open. He will realize he was never chained by circumstance, only by fear. And the moment he chooses freedom, heaven will rush to meet him. Doors will open, paths will clear, confusion will lift. You'll feel it before it happens, a sudden peace in your spirit, a knowing that something shifted. That will be God's sign that the battle is over. He will reach out, perhaps quietly at first, unsure if you'll receive him. And God will whisper to your heart, "This is the one I spoke of. The one I was preparing." Do not rush. Let love rebuild slowly, divinely. The foundation must be pure this time, or the same pain will return. But now, both of you will know the difference between attachment and assignment. Heaven says, you will not have to beg for his effort. When I free him, he will come with clarity, not confusion. He will come because he's been transformed, not just because he misses you. You will see a humility in him you've never seen before. He will admit what fear made him hide. He will speak truth where silence once lived. This is not a fairy tale, it's divine redemption. What was stolen will be restored, but not in the same form. It will be wiser, purer, stronger. And in that moment, you will understand why the waiting mattered. Every prayer, every tear, every test had purpose. The story God is writing is not just about love, it's about liberation. So even now, when you feel forgotten, lift your hands and thank heaven for what's unfolding. Thank God that he's working where you cannot. Thank him that he's not letting this man stay bound, even when you can't see progress. Faith is the bridge between promise and manifestation. Walk on it, even when it sways. Heaven is closer than it looks. Angels have been dispatched to stand beside him. The chain around his heart is breaking link by link. One day, you'll look back and realize, he had to go through the valley so he could meet you on the mountaintop. God says, do not lose heart. I am not late. I am perfect in timing. And to you who have loved so purely, heaven honors you. You were not sent to fix him, but to reflect divine love so clearly that he couldn't forget it even in his darkness. You planted a seed in his soul, and God has been watering it. The bloom will come. When it does, both of you will know it wasn't chance, it was destiny refined by grace. Keep walking, beloved soul. Keep shining. God is breaking the spiritual chains, and soon, what's been delayed will be delivered. The awakening begins quietly, almost imperceptibly, as if heaven breathes on his soul while the world still sleeps. One morning he opens his eyes, and something feels different. The weight that used to rest on his chest no longer fits. The familiar ache of obligation that used to define his choices begins to loosen its grip. He can't explain it, but his spirit feels restless. The chains that once held him are trembling under the power of divine intervention. God has entered his heart space, not through thunder or fear, but through an inner stillness that whispers, "You cannot stay where I did not plant you." At first he resists the feeling. Change feels like betrayal when you've lived too long in false peace. But the whispers grow louder. He starts noticing signs, songs, phrases, sudden memories of you that come without warning. Your laughter echoes in his mind, your kindness revisits him like sunlight through a window he forgot existed. Heaven is orchestrating divine reminders, reawakening his memory of what truth felt like when he was with you. He realizes now it was never just love, it was alignment. The light he felt around you was God himself showing him what peace feels like. He begins to wrestle within. His nights become restless, his dreams filled with faces fading into light. Angels stand at the edge of those dreams, showing him visions, one path bathed in gold, another in shadow. They never force him, they simply reveal truth. He wakes up sweating, heart pounding, aware that his soul has been touched by something greater than reason. During the day, every conversation that used to comfort him feels empty. The places he once ran to for distraction now echo with silence. God has removed the taste of false contentment from his spirit. When heaven starts to free a man, he first makes his cage unbearable. Meanwhile, your soul feels the tremor. You may not hear from him, yet your heart senses motion, like a tide shifting before the dawn. You wake up some mornings with tears you can't explain, as if your spirit knows he's fighting for freedom. The divine connection between your souls still hums through the unseen. You think of him and whisper prayers not of longing, but of release. You've learned to surrender him to God's will, and that surrender has become the key heaven needed. When you stop trying to rescue him, God stepped fully into the role. One evening, he sits in silence and finally asks the question that unlocks heaven's answer, God, what do you want from me? The moment he asks, the atmosphere shifts. It's the first time in a long time he's spoken to God without pretense. Heaven answers, not through thunder, but through peace that floods his chest. In that peace he hears, not with ears but with his soul, walk away. Trust me. I have something higher. The words terrify him, yet they resonate like truth long buried. He feels the chains break one by one, not in noise, but in revelation. He begins to understand that staying bound is more dangerous than stepping into the unknown. The next days are sacred chaos. God rearranges his steps. People he relied on begin to distance themselves. Situations crumble. Conversations reveal hidden motives. Every comfort built on compromise begins to fall apart. It looks like destruction, but it's deliverance. Heaven never frees you gently, it frees you completely. The ties that held him in guilt and fear dissolve, leaving him exposed but pure. He weeps, not because he's weak, but because he finally feels. The numbness breaks. He realizes how long he's been spiritually asleep. In those moments, he remembers your strength. He recalls how your faith never demanded but inspired. He remembers how your love held space without control. These memories become his compass. He begins to see you not just as the one he loves, but as the reflection of what God wants him to become, free, faithful, fearless. And in that realization, something miraculous happens, he forgives himself. The moment forgiveness enters, freedom completes its work. Because true liberation begins the second shame loses its hold. God watches as he starts walking, first in hesitation, then with determination. The path back toward truth is narrow, filled with tests. Each step he takes away from bondage triggers warfare, but heaven surrounds him. Angels move ahead, clearing unseen resistance. He no longer runs from silence, he meets it. He learns to pray not to escape pain, but to transform it. And through every quiet dawn, God whispers your name into his heart, not as an obsession, but as a destination. You were always part of his promise. You, too, are being prepared. While he learns to walk by faith, you are learning to rest by faith. God is teaching you not to depend on signs, but to believe the word he already spoke. He said, "I am breaking the spiritual chains," and he meant it. The evidence may come slowly, but the decree was instant. Your waiting has turned into worship, your heartbreak into wisdom. You no longer pray from desperation but from authority, knowing that what is ordained cannot be destroyed. Heaven smiles upon you, beloved soul, you passed the hardest test, loving without losing yourself. Time moves forward, and the shift becomes visible. His speech changes. His energy feels lighter. He begins to make choices led by conviction rather than fear. He distances himself from what used to define him. Those around him notice, but few understand. Some mock him, others withdraw, but he doesn't falter. God's fire has purified his intent. And when God refines a man, he also restores his vision. Slowly, he starts to see where he's meant to be, and every image leads back to you. He doesn't rush. He knows now that love is sacred work. He prays before reaching out, seeking divine timing, not emotional relief. In one of those prayers, God confirms what his heart already knows, "She is not your fantasy, she is your mirror. Through her, you will see me." The words humble him. He weeps again, not from sorrow, but from awe. The same God who once shook his world apart is now guiding him toward a promise built on truth. The same chains that once silenced him have become testimonies of grace. And then, the day comes. Quietly, unexpectedly. You sense it before it happens, a stillness in your heart, an unexplainable peace. You no longer ache, you simply know. That morning, he writes a message. His hands tremble. He doesn't try to impress, he just speaks truth, how he's been delivered, how he's learned, how he's grateful for your patience even when you didn't know you were being patient. When the message reaches you, it's as if heaven exhales. You feel the Spirit move through your chest, not as shock, but as confirmation. You read his words, and your soul whispers, "This is the moment God promised." But even then, God reminds you, move slowly. Divine timing doesn't rush, it unfolds. So you meet him again, perhaps in conversation, perhaps through a single encounter that feels guided. His eyes hold humility now, his energy feels cleansed. The chains are gone, but the marks remain, not as wounds, but as proof of victory. When you speak, there is no bitterness. There's recognition. Two souls that walked through fire, meeting again in light. The air around you feels charged, not with tension, but with peace. He tells you about the dreams, the signs, the nights he wanted to reach out but couldn't. He tells you how God took everything he thought he needed just to show him what truly matters. You listen not with judgment but with grace. You see him as God sees him, redeemed, not broken. You realize that this was never about losing him, it was about both of you finding God in your separate wildernesses. What you feel between you now isn't mere emotion, it's divine alignment restored. Heaven smiles upon this reunion, not because it's romantic, but because it's righteous. Together, you begin to rebuild, not from past expectation, but from spiritual truth. The connection that once felt chaotic now feels covered in peace. You pray together. You speak blessings over each other. You set boundaries not to protect fear, but to honor purpose. The world may not understand what happened, but heaven does. The story became a testimony. Where there was once bondage, there is now freedom. Where there was confusion, there is clarity. The same love that once felt heavy now feels holy. God says, "This is what divine love looks like, two souls who refuse to let darkness define them, who let me write the ending. You both carry scars, but they shine like gold in sunlight." Every tear, every prayer, every sleepless night has become a seed of faith that now bears fruit. You walk together, not as two halves seeking completion, but as two wholes glorifying God through unity. And even now, God continues to work. This union will become a beacon for others still bound. Through your story, many will believe that love can be purified, that chains can be broken, that time is never wasted when heaven leads. Your journey was never punishment, it was preparation for ministry, for purpose, for legacy. You were never waiting for him, you were waiting for both of you to be ready for what God ordained. So, lift your eyes, beloved. The promise has matured. The man who once couldn't walk away has walked straight into grace. And you, who once waited in tears, now stand clothed in strength. Heaven rejoices because two souls have remembered what divine love really is: surrender, faith, freedom, and light. The spiritual chains are gone, and what remains is holy. He looks at you differently now. Not as someone to complete him, but as someone to walk beside him. His eyes carry the softness of surrender, the humility of a man who has met his Maker in the middle of his weakness. You, too, have changed. The waiting refined you, it taught you patience, wisdom, and the quiet power of stillness. When you speak, you no longer speak from need, you speak from knowing. Every word carries peace, not pressure. God smiles, because this is how he meant love to be, not two lost hearts clinging, but two whole beings honoring the divine within one another. As days unfold, you both move gently, letting the rhythm of heaven lead. You pray together more than you plan. You listen more than you talk. You laugh without fear of losing each other. There's a softness around you, a calm that others can feel when they step into your presence. It's not just love, it's light. The energy between you heals. People who used to know your stories notice the change, they can't explain it, but they sense peace. They see two people who have survived what could have broken them, and now radiate grace instead of bitterness. God begins to use you both quietly. The same pain that once silenced you becomes the bridge for others' healing. When you speak of love, you no longer speak of heartbreak, you speak of redemption. You talk of how waiting taught faith, how surrender opened doors no human could close, how grace turned endings into beginnings. You find yourselves comforting others who are still walking through the valley. They see themselves in your journey. You don't need grand sermons, your lives are the testimony. And every once in a while, in the stillness of evening, you both remember how it all began, how impossible it once seemed. You remember the tears, the silence, the longing, the lessons. And instead of pain, you feel gratitude. Because now you understand, the delay was never denial, it was design. God was writing His glory into your story, line by line, even when you thought He was silent. If He had brought you together too soon, you would have destroyed what He meant to preserve. Timing was the greatest mercy. Heaven doesn't rush divine unions, it matures them. And now, both of you are mature, not just in age, but in spirit. You know how to pray through confusion, how to forgive before it's asked, how to see through eyes of faith instead of fear. You've learned that love is not the absence of struggle, it's the presence of God in the midst of it. And because you've both been broken and healed by the same hands, your bond carries heaven's fingerprint. God begins opening new paths. Together you begin projects that serve others, simple acts that carry divine weight. Whether it's comforting the lonely, mentoring the broken, or sharing words that bring hope, everything you touch carries light. You realize this love was never just for you, it was meant to ripple outward. The same way your faith once set him free, now both your lives set others free. Love has become ministry, not just memory. At times, the world tests your peace. Not all days are perfect. There are moments when old fears knock on the door, when doubt whispers again. But now you both know what to do, you pray. You return to the same altar that birthed your restoration. You lay your worries down and remember who brought you this far. And without fail, peace returns. Because what God ordains, He also sustains. One morning, as sunlight filters through your window, He turns to you and says softly, "I finally understand what love means." You smile, because you already knew. It means choosing faith over fear. It means forgiving when it's hard. It means letting God be the center, not control, not ego. Love, as heaven teaches, is not about possession, it's about purpose. And as you look at each other, you realize your love has become a vessel for something eternal. You start to see how your story fits into something larger. Every hardship, every delay, every unanswered prayer now feels like a piece of a puzzle you couldn't see before. God didn't just free him from his chains, He freed you from the need to understand everything. That freedom allows joy to flow effortlessly. You laugh more easily. You rest more deeply. You trust without forcing outcomes. Time moves, but it no longer feels rushed. You measure life not in milestones, but in moments, moments of quiet peace, shared prayer, small miracles. The same heaven that once seemed distant now feels near in every sunrise, every act of kindness, every whisper of gratitude. And slowly, you begin to understand what all of this was truly about, not just love between two people, but love that reflects heaven on earth. Because divine love doesn't end with romance, it expands into compassion. It transforms you into a living example of what God can do when two hearts yield completely. You become proof that nothing is too broken, that no distance is too great, that no chain is too strong for grace. You become walking evidence that God's timing is perfect and His love unshakable. And someday, maybe years from now, you'll tell your story to others. You'll speak of the man who couldn't walk away until heaven intervened, and of the woman who waited not in despair but in faith. You'll speak of the night prayers, the long silences, the breakthroughs. But most of all, you'll speak of how God never left either of you, not for a moment. The audience will listen, and something inside them will stir: hope, faith, courage. They'll realize that if God could redeem your story, He can redeem theirs too. This is the legacy heaven intended. Not fame or perfection, but a ripple of healing. The chains that once bound one man have now become testimonies that free many. The tears that once watered your pillow now water seeds of faith in others. Love has multiplied, and grace has grown roots deeper than any storm could reach. And when you look back, you'll see the fingerprints of God in every chapter. The delays, the silences, the heartbreaks, they were all brushstrokes in a divine masterpiece. The masterpiece was never just the reunion, it was the transformation. God didn't just want to bring you together, He wanted to make you whole. And now you are. So, as the day ends and the light turns golden, you both sit in quiet gratitude. The air feels sacred again, but this time not because of longing, because of fulfillment. You've seen God's hand too clearly to doubt Him again. You've learned that every no was making room for a better yes. And as you hold hands, you whisper together a simple prayer, one that has no asking in it, only thanks. Thank you, God, for every delay that became a blessing, for every tear that became a seed, for every chain that became a testimony. Thank you for love that heals and a story that glorifies you. Heaven hears, and smiles. The angels who once fought to free him now stand in peace, their mission complete. The chains are gone, the hearts are free, and what remains is holy. You have become the living proof that love, when surrendered to God, becomes eternal. And that's how the story ends, not with fireworks or grand declarations, but with quiet, sacred peace. Because divine love doesn't need noise to be powerful. It simply exists, glowing steady, lighting the world around it. Two souls once broken, now whole, two hearts once bound, now free, two lives once lost, now found in the heart of God.